Well, good evening, everybody. I'm not Evan Wyatt. My name is Chase Boatwright, and I have the joy of being able to be the choir and drama director over at West Lawrence High School, and as such, I have the great privilege and honor of getting to teach Evan in choir, and in some ways he taught me a bit too. I'm super glad to see just the loving support for him out here tonight, and I know y'all are super excited to listen to this young man display some great musical art. Please remember just to make sure your cell phones are on silent, just out of respect for his performance, but by all means take pictures if you wish. And greetings, you two people as well. Hope you all enjoy the performance. So without further ado, here is Mr. Evan Wyatt.
crazy. That's not Evan Wyatt down there sitting on the front row. It's such a pleasure to be with you here this evening. I prepared an evening of music for you that I really hope you enjoy. And I'm going to continuously talk to you throughout the evening because, I don't know, as long as I've been performing, I've always felt that my elevation off the ground doesn't separate me from talking to you and saying hello and saying welcome and telling you a little bit about what I'm doing. So I'm going to continuously do that and let y'all know a little bit about what I'm playing. Speaking of which, the piece I just played for you is by contemporary American composer Philip Glass. What's really interesting about that piece, if you didn't hear it, the entire thing is built off this. The first section, the pre-chorus, if you will, and then the big bombastic section. All of that is built off that same exact progression over and over again, which is really ingenious to me. It's quite amazing what Philip Glass is able to do just with those chords. Speaking of a composer who is well known for reusing material in ingenious and very creative ways, what I'm playing for you next is a piece by Ludwig van Beethoven. Let me be frank. I did not like Beethoven for a very, very long time, which feels interesting to say as a music major, but I didn't care for it. But the more I played him and the more I listened, the more I enjoyed. And the piece I'm playing for you tonight is his 7th piano sonata out of 32, which is quite an achievement if you think about it, 32 of those things. But if you can't tell, 7 out of 32, this is early on. This is beginning into Beethoven's career. When he's a budding young composer trying to make his way in Vienna, he's not what the titan everyone knows him as now, or as he was later known in his life. And also, important to note, he's not deaf yet, either. So what you're going to hear is him using these pianistic fireworks, lots of scales, lots of arpeggios, all the whole kitchen sink, if you will. And that's the first movement. But the second movement is kind of this soul-searching dirge. Very slow, very melancholic, very, very painful. And I've opted only to play the first and second, because if I played all four, we'd be here all evening. But I've opted to play the first and the second because they're my favorite of the ones, of the movements in this set. So I hope you enjoy Beethoven's 7th Piano Sonata in D major. next is a piece that I wrote. And I don't credit any of its composition to my own doing, because it's truly not. There are other people who deserve the credit for it, but I'll get to that in a moment. First I want to talk to you about the inspiration for it. By a show of hands, who here does not like to work from home? Does not like to work from home? Any takers? Okay, I'm glad to know I'm not a little bit alone, because I hate to work from home so much. But everyone's always talking about how they wish they could stay home more, and I'm like, no, I despise it. Because, I don't know, home should be home and work should be work, but that's nonetheless here. Because the whole point is I go to my church to practice. Because that's where I enjoy to practice. Because I don't want to be at home. But I go to my church to practice. And from where I sit in my church, there's a stained glass window where the piano is faced. And that stained glass window is a picture of baby Jesus, Mother Mary, and Joseph. And one day I was taking a break or something like that, I can't quite remember, and I saw it, and I was very inspired by it, by the calmness of baby Jesus, the relaxation I felt at seeing the Savior of the world be brought forth. And that soothed me quite a bit. So I wrote something very soothing to that, something very calm, something that mimicked the relaxation of knowing the Savior was here. And I finished it and I was like, well, this is all well and good, I enjoy the piece. But I felt as if there was more to be said. And I kept writing, and I looked more at different stained glass windows, and I saw Jesus in the garden, and I saw Jesus on the cross. And I kept writing and I said, that's what I want to mimic next. And so the second section of the piece is similar to Beethoven. I just played very solemn, very sorrowful. And I kind of had this picture of Mary weeping while I was writing it. And I knew there was yet more to be written. And so I wrote the ascension and the resurrection of Christ. And then the calmness returns from what I wrote at the beginning, but this time perfected, because it's been done. What Jesus came here to do was done after his resurrection and ascension. And so this whole piece is kind of a microcosm of the gospel. And I can't credit, as I said earlier, myself to writing it. Firstly, I finished it in a week, so certainly there must be some kind of divine inspiration there. I've never tried my hand at composing before, and I finished this thing like that. Ideas just kept coming. But also, I would like to say a very special thank you to someone who truly, without this would not be possible. And that is my professor, Dr. Enoch Jacobus. He is the music theory professor at Shorter, and he's taught me everything I know about how to write music, how to voice lead music. He's taught me all different kinds of harmonies, and truly everything I do in this piece is based off what he's shown me. And so I would like to dedicate this performance of this piece and the piece itself to him, and say a very deep thank you to Dr. Jacobus for making this piece possible. But nonetheless, I invite you, while I'm playing it, to listen for the things that I described. One thing I will note before I play it is you will hear the tomb closing and Jesus' death being sealed. You're going to want to clap, but don't do it. Because just like what the disciples thought, they thought it was over, but it wasn't. The tomb rolled away, and so it continued. So you too will think it's over, but it won't be. I hope you enjoy it. We will enjoy a brief 10-minute intermission.
Hello, I didn't know you probably didn't expect to see or hear from me again, but, it's my request. When Evan came and told me about, this night, I was already sold. I was like, yeah, absolutely, I'll come. And then he added something that kind of caught me off guard. It was really touching to me. He told me, Mr. Boatwright, it's going to be open to the public, of course, but he wanted to make it known that he was accepting some donations if the Lord leads you to do so. And he told me that he was going to use those donations to go towards the West Lawrence Choir, which, again, really caught me off guard in a good way. It was just really, really kind for him to say that. And I was like, well, man, whatever happens, either way, donations, no donations, I'm there for you all the way, because I love hearing him play, always have, and I missed him since he graduated. But I've been grateful to have him come back and play for a couple of our concerts, and he came this past March with the Shorter Chorale, and they did a little performance for my choir, and that was just really amazing to just see him up there and hear him talk about his time in the program. Now, as to what the donations are going to, they're going to the West Lawrence Choir, and with that, the funds that we either raise through fundraising or through donations, we put, of course, music. That's definitely a big part of it, because we have to buy all of our music, usually from J.W. Pepper. If you're a music person, you probably visited that website or have seen a lot from there many times over. So we're always having to buy music, especially if we get more people in the choir. That means more parts, so then we have to change it up and buy some more music. We also and we always strive to pay our accompanists, because they take time out of their schedule, because we don't have like a one set accompanist every time. Sometimes it's whoever's available. Sometimes we have to use tracks, but we love using accompanists so much, and I think I saw Miss Betty Ann in here. There you are, Miss Betty Ann definitely has gone through that. She's dealt with some of my requests or sometimes last minute changes, and I'm always going to be grateful for that. But we love to pay our accompanists for their time, their effort, the gas that they also use to go to not just the school, but even to other parts of another county for different events. And this also just opens up opportunities for the kids to do more. One event that we like to do is the Large Group Performance Evaluation, aka LGPE, and I'm really trying to look for other opportunities for the kids to go perform, to showcase their talent, and to get feedback for that talent. So just every little bit that we raise, I just want to use that to invest in the kids, to give them the opportunities to perform, because I know COVID was a huge impactor on trips and other such events, and we've been just starting to build our way back up from that. So again, if the Lord leads you, please, it would be appreciated, but at the same time, this isn't about me, this isn't about the chorus. I'm just, again, grateful to just see all this love and support for Evan, and just to watch him, pour out the talent that the Lord's given him. So that's my spiel. I did my job, Evan. And so without further ado, here is some more great music from Mr. Wyatt.
The next pieces I'm going to play for you, actually here, let's start a little bit further back. Franz Liszt. One might describe him as the first rock star to ever exist. And the reason I say that, even though he died before the 20th century, the reason I say that is because when he was a young man, he was known for his virtuoso piano playing. He could hit all the keys at once 10 times over if you needed him to. And he would tour across Europe when he was very young, and he kind of formalized the idea of a piano recital. The very concept of what I'm doing now is owed to him. And while he was traveling, he wrote music of all his different travels. And the piece I'm about to play for you is from his time in Italy. He wrote a piece called Sposalizio, which is based off a painting by Raphael. And it is about the marriage of a young woman and a young man and the joyful love that they feel for one another. And you can really hear the innocence in this piece and the deep abiding care that they have for one another. And you will hear some of the pianistic fireworks he's known for near the end. It's not listed, it's not pianistic fireworks. But the next piece I'm going to play for you after that by Liszt, and I firmly believe that these two pieces are somewhat intertwined, is called Il Pensieroso, which means the thinker. And it is a slow funeral march based off the use of chromatic medians, which sounds rather interesting once you hear it. He was somewhat eccentric for his time in terms of writing music. He wrote music without a tonal center once, and that one's a blast, but for the ears that is. But I'm going to play for you now Franz Liszt, Il Sposalizio and Il Pensieroso. I've got one more piece on my program, and then I'll let you be free. But before I play the final piece, I wanted to talk a little bit more about what Mr. Boatwright spoke about earlier, but not so much on the fact as where the funds are going, although that's important. But even more so than that, we have to look at the root. Why is it important? Why is music education important? And I have a question for you all to kind of kickstart this conversation. So, have you listened on the radio recently, or perhaps wherever you listen to music that isn't Spotify? Because Spotify, you can curate your own playlist and do whatever you want with that. But on the radio or wherever you've been listening to music, have you been listening and a song comes on the radio and you're just like, wow, how did this get on here? You're just like, this is completely, the lyrics are bland, the melody is uninspired, and it just sounds, it's just bland. And that's not a shot at any artist that comes on the radio. There are plenty of fine songs that come on the radio. But you have those ones that just make you feel, how did this get out here? Raise your hands, anyone? Okay, good. I'm glad to know I'm not alone. How and why does this start? Why is this a problem? Well, I think if you look at the issue, it starts with how we are educating our children in music. If you do not prioritize good music education, you will end up with a poor musical culture that prioritizes bland music, uninspired lyrics, when you don't teach kids what to listen for, as Mr. Boatwright does. I think there's kind of this perception that choir is where you show up and sing for an hour and 15 minutes. We do a lot of singing, I will give you that. But Mr. Boatwright does not merely stop with the singing. He dives deeper with the students. He teaches them how to speak in other languages. He teaches them music theory. He teaches them how to sight read. All of these extremely critical skills for budding young musicians. He teaches them how to listen to music and how to identify what's happening inside of it. When these skills are taught, good music is not prioritized. Poor music is prioritized because kids don't know what to listen for because they don't know how to. Let me read for you a paragraph from a book by Charles Hoffer. He's one of the leading exponents in music education. He's a great thinker in this world of music education. This is from his book, Introduction to Music Education. Chapter 1, The Importance of Teaching Music. This is a paragraph from here. Music and the other arts represent an important difference between existing and living. Animals exist in the sense that they manage to survive. Humans live. They attempt to make life interesting and satisfying. Humans are not content to just get by, to survive. Music, the visual arts, and dance enrich life and bring to it special meanings by providing an avenue for expression. People admire the shifting surf, the colors of a sunset, and the beauty of a flower. They also create objects they can contemplate and with which they can enrich their lives. Although a large cardboard box could serve as a nightstand by a bed, most would rather have a wooden table or a piece of furniture with some grace and beauty. And this final sentence here, I believe, is the crux of the whole issue. The compulsion of humans to reach beyond their immediate and practical needs is not just a luxury. It is an essential quality of being human. People are under the impression that music is a secondary concern in education. And I argue that it is not. That it is a primary concern just the same as English language arts, the sciences, social studies, learning our history, and math. And I say this as someone who is a massive math nerd. My girlfriend will probably vent to you about that if you ask. Music has this most special ability to put inside of us feelings that we can't quite describe. Ideas that we really don't understand and that we can't vocalize with words. That's amazing to me. And I think that our education in music is the beginning of the understanding of how we grasp these concepts. That is all to say, I want Mr. Boatwright and these students to be able to focus on doing that, on studying the music intently and with observation to absolute detail. I don't want them to worry about how their funds are going to come from music. I don't want them to worry about how they're going to pay for an accompanist. That's detracting from the time that they could spend learning about whatever it is we just experienced. I still can't put a name on it. You'd think studying music education, I would know what music is. I really don't. I just kind of enjoy it and play it. But as I said, that is my call to action if you feel inclined to give. Funding the arts in this way is massively important for all the reasons I described. And so these kids can focus on the music. And so Mr. Boatwright can get more kids in the room to focus on the music, and he doesn't have to worry about kids carrying around chocolate bars so they can sell those. And that's what's funding their music education. You think about that? You have to sell chocolate bars to fund at least what I consider a very important educational upbringing. That's my spiel on giving. If you feel so inclined, the offering plate is right here up front. Give $5 if you can. I mean, I look at the amount of people in here. Everybody gives $5, and Mr. Boatwright really doesn't have to worry for a semester about what they're going to be spending money on. But back to the program, my final piece. I will be playing for you Chopin's Second Scherzo in B flat minor, Opus 31. This piece is very dear to my heart. There's so much passion, there's so much love, there's so much fury. I truly didn't think I'd be able to accomplish a piece like this in a million years, but here I am standing before you about to play it. Sometimes I still don't think I'm accomplishing it correctly. But I will play it for you nonetheless, because I think experiencing it is such a joy. But I do hope you enjoy Chopin's Second Scherzo in B flat minor.
get a bigger